There's something inside you that's been waiting, but you've been told to silence it, to stay soft, to stay small. But what if I told you that fear you feel, it's not trying to stop you? It's trying to wake you up. Most women never figure this out. They keep chasing confidence like it's something outside of them, when in reality, the crown was always theirs. But there's a reason you haven't worn it yet. And when you hear this, you'll never question your power again. You ever sat back and realized how many moments you gave away to fear? How many times you swallowed your words when your soul was screaming? That whisper that said, "Maybe I'm not ready," wasn't your truth. That was your fear rehearsing its lines over and over. And baby girl, you've been in the audience too long. I've learned something real simple in life. If you don't claim your crown, you end up serving someone who did. Not because they were better, but because they were louder inside their own mind. Confidence isn't something you're born with. It's forged. It's practiced. It's earned in the quiet moments when nobody's watching. When your hands are shaking, but you still show up. That's queen energy. That's the mindset that separates the remembered from the forgotten. Now, I know fear ain't something you just turn off. I felt it too. Every time I stepped into a new role. Every time the world told me what I couldn't, but I learned to flip the script, to see fear not as an enemy, but as a flashlight pointing at the very thing I must confront to grow. Fear shows up loud as strike before your next breakthrough. You want fierce focus for success? Then here's your first shift. Stop negotiating with fear. Fear loves conversation. It thrives on your delay. It multiplies with your hesitation. But when you stand tall, even with doubt tapping on your shoulder, and say, "Not today," something in the universe changes. You unlock a spiritual frequency reserved for women who know their worth and walk it. This ain't about ego. This is about alignment. You're not trying to impress. You're trying to become. That's what the queen mindset for women really is. It's not about status or titles. It's about spiritual clarity, inner royalty, knowing that your value isn't up for discussion. And here's the truth. Every queen started as a woman who refused to quit. She had her moments, tears behind closed doors, silent breakdowns between loud applause. But she stayed committed, not to perfection, to progress. Stick with me in this video, because we're about to unpack the blueprint that has transformed women who were once paralyzed by fear into women who command rooms with a glance. I've seen it. And by the end of this, you'll have it too. I need you to understand something. Deep confidence is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to keep moving forward with it. Most people get that wrong. They wait. They think confidence is something that shows up before the leap. No, confidence is what's built during the fall. I used to think I had to be fearless to lead. But over time, I realized the goal was never to kill fear, it was to train it. Fear is a wild horse. Left unchecked, it'll throw you off every dream you ever had. But once you learn to ride it, to guide it, it becomes power. Controlled power. I remember being on stages with thousands of eyes on me thinking, what if I mess up? What if I'm not enough? And I'd hear that voice, my fear, trying to negotiate. And then I'd hear the other voice, that quiet one, the real one. It said, you prepared for this. You've been becoming this. Oh, you see, that voice lives in you too. The one that knows you're more than you've been showing. The one that's tired of playing small, shrinking to fit into spaces that were never built for your fire. That voice is your queen self, the one who doesn't ask for permission, she declares purpose. So if you're struggling right now with self-doubt, I want you to know that's normal. That's human. But I also want you to know it's a choice to stay there. You don't overcome self-doubt by thinking. You overcome it by doing. Tip. One bold yes when fear says no. And listen, we gotta stop confusing humility with hiding. A lot of women think shrinking is noble, that being soft-spoken is the same as being graceful. Let me break that lie for you. Grace without truth becomes self-betrayal. You're allowed to speak with strength. You're allowed to walk like your existence is a gift, because it is. You want to build women's confidence. Then start with your environment. Who's feeding your fire and who's secretly throwing water on it? This is the part nobody wants to talk about. Because some of the people who love you the most are also the ones who keep you most afraid. Not because they're evil, but because your growth threatens their comfort. They're not here to make others comfortable. You're here to evolve. And sometimes that means letting go of the hand that's holding you back, even if it's shaking while you do it. The queen mindset for women demands that you choose your future over your familiarity. Every time. Now let's talk about focus. Not the type where you multitask and check boxes. I'm talking about fierce focus. The kind of internal laser that cuts through chaos. You ever seen a woman who's truly focused? It's not just her eyes. It's her energy. She doesn't beg. She doesn't chase. She attracts because she knows where she's going and what she's willing to leave behind to get there. Let me give you something real here. There was a woman I met, not famous, not loud, but powerful. She told me, I stopped looking for proof. I started becoming the evidence. That hit me. She wasn't waiting for someone to tell her she was worthy. She embodied it. And when I watched her walk into a room, she didn't announce herself, but the energy shifted. That's queen energy, and that's available to you too. See, confidence doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, I'll show you. And then it does. Quiet, consistent moves that build an unshakable foundation. That's the kind of self-confidence mastery for women that lasts. Not the loud, performative stuff, but the deep, quiet strength that stands when everything else crumbles. Stay locked in, because in the next part, I'm going to break down exactly how to build that kind of emotional resilience, how to move from anxious overthinking into aligned action. Because once you get this next piece, you won't just walk different, you'll live different. All right, so let's get to it. Let's talk about how you turn that tightness in your chest into fuel, that racing thought into forward motion. Because here's the truth nobody tells you: your anxiety, your fear, your second guessing. They're not signs you're weak. They're signals, internal messages. But you've been taught to mute them instead of translate them. You've got to stop trying to kill the fear and start converting it. Every time your stomach flips, that's energy, potential. That's your body telling you you're standing at the edge of something that matters. So instead of saying, I'm scared, start saying, I'm ready. Your mind will follow the language you choose. I remember this moment. I was offered a role that scared me. Not because I couldn't act, but because the role demanded more of me, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and my instinct was to shrink. But then I said something out loud to myself: growth is this fear. If it doesn't scare me, it can't stretch me. That was a turning point, and that same shift is waiting for you. So what does that mean practically? It means you've got to stop waiting to feel ready. That feeling is a myth. Readiness is not an emotion. It's a decision. You decide to rise. You decide to act. And then here's the magic: you rise into readiness. You want that queen mindset. You earn it by doing the things that scare you before you feel like a queen. Because royalty isn't inherited. It's forged in the heat of resistance. It's what you do in discomfort that builds who you become in peace. Let's take a moment here. Think of a woman in your life, or maybe even someone you've seen from afar, who moves like she knows who she is. She doesn't talk the most. She doesn't dress for approval. She just radiates knowing. I once met a woman running her own tech company. She was the only woman in the boardroom. The youngest one, too. They didn't take her seriously at first until she started speaking. She didn't raise her voice. She raised her value. She made decisions with precision. Why? Because she wasn't chasing confidence anymore. She was anchored in it. She told me every time I walk in that room, I remind myself I'm not asking to belong. I'm bringing the standard. That's the difference. Confidence doesn't beg. It builds. It builds through experience, through showing up when your legs are shaking, through being misunderstood and still speaking your truth, through honoring your yes and protecting your no. Let's get tactical. Write this down somewhere. My action is louder than my anxiety. Say it out loud. Let it feel awkward. That's your nervous system adjusting to your next level. You want fierce focus for success, then you need routines. Rituals, boundaries. Focus is not just about what you look at, it's about what you're willing to ignore. You don't have to respond to every doubt. You don't have to explain your decisions to everyone. You're allowed to have goals that nobody claps for. That's okay. A queen doesn't need applause to take the throne. You've been taught to please, to smile when it hurts, to avoid making others uncomfortable. But you deserve peace too. You deserve space to become, to breathe, to build. And that starts when you stop apologizing for needing more. More quiet, more strength, more you. Now stay with me, because what's coming next is where everything shifts. In the next part, I'm breaking down the secret ingredients behind lasting transformation, how to reinforce your confidence so deeply. Fear starts shrinking before you even speak. All right, you made it here. That already tells me something about you. You're done living halfway. You're ready to rebuild from the inside. But let me be clear, building confidence isn't what I'm saying. It's not a quote you save on your phone or a moment of hype. It's a lifestyle, and it begins with the way you treat yourself when nobody's watching. Let me ask you something real. What's the conversation like in your head when you mess up? Is it compassion or is it condemnation? Most women I talk to, they beat themselves up harder than anyone else ever could. And here's the danger in that it trains your brain to believe that failure is a threat instead of a teacher. You can't build confidence while punishing yourself. That's like trying to grow flowers in concrete. You've got to shift the narrative. Instead of I failed, say I'm learning. Instead of I'm behind, say I'm becoming. The words you speak over yourself become the house you live in. So let me share something that changed my life. I started treating myself like someone I was responsible for protecting. I stopped bullying myself in my own mind. Because if I'm gonna lead, if I'm gonna shine, if I'm gonna move mountains, then I can't keep planting doubt in the very soil I'm trying to grow in. Listen close. When you're building self-confidence mastery for women, it's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming predictable. That means when fear shows up, you already have your response prepared. You don't need to guess who you are. You've trained it. This is where routines come in. Every powerful woman I know has anchors. Morning rituals, night habits, non-negotiables. Because without structure, fear fills in the blanks. Without intentional time, distraction becomes your default. So set the tone. Light a candle. Write the vision. Speak it out loud. Not because it's magic, but because it's memory. You're telling your nervous system what truth feels like. Let me get more practical. You want to reinforce the queen mindset? Build a small win system. Every single day, do 3 things that affirm your power. They don't have to be big. Speak up in a meeting. Finish something you've been putting off. Say no with your chest. Every time you do, you're stacking proof. I'm a woman who follows through. That's what creates fierce focus. It's not the grind, it's the clarity. It's knowing what matters enough to protect your energy from what doesn't. You can't chase every invitation and still walk your purpose. You gotta choose. And yes, it will cost you some things. But what you gain is peace, alignment, neither fire. And let's not ignore the emotional side. You've probably been the strong one for too long, always putting others first, always giving more than you receive. But let me say this clearly, your softness is not your weakness. It's just a signal. It tells you when you've gone too far for too long. And real confidence knows when to rest. There's a difference between quitting and recovering. Rest is holy. Rest is strategic. Queens don't burn out to prove their worth. They pause to remember it. They walk away when something dishonors their spirit. That's not weakness, that's mastery. So let me leave you with this before we head into the final part. Confidence isn't about what people see when you walk into a room. It's about what you believe when you're sitting alone, when the applause fades, when the makeup's soft, when it's just you and your dreams and your fears. What do you say to yourself then? Because that is where the crown is won. So let me ask you something that might sting a little bit. What would your life look like if fear was no longer in charge, not gone completely, just dethroned? Because fear doesn't disappear. It just loses authority. The more you move forward with it beside you and not ahead of you, the more it fades into the background. And confidence, it steps up and takes the mic. Here's the truth. Every time you show up when it's hard, when you don't feel ready, when your heart's pounding and your knees feel weak, you're building the woman you were meant to be. But most people never get there. You know why? Because they stop at discomfort. They turn back at I don't know how. They wait for permission from a world that doesn't even know their name. But queens don't wait. They decide. They declare. They walk in before the crown is handed to them. You've been conditioned to believe your power comes from approval. True self-confidence, mastery for women, it comes from alignment. It's knowing who you are when no one's clapping. It's knowing what you stand for even when you're standing alone. And let's talk about alliances, because so many of you feel like you're walking this journey by yourself. Maybe your friends don't get it. Maybe your family still wants the old version of you. Maybe your relationship drains more than it gives. But let me tell you something I had to learn the hard way. The higher you rise, the smaller the crowd gets. And that's not punishment. That's preparation. You are being refined for something bigger, stronger, richer, not just in money, but in meaning. And that queen mindset, it doesn't come with noise. It comes in the silence. It's built in the quiet hours when you choose growth over comfort, truth over safety. When you show up again and again, especially when it's hard, that's when you become unshakable. And don't be fooled, nobody is born ready. They all build it, one act of courage at a time. One, I'm scared, but I'm doing it anyway. You want fierce focus for success, and you need to get clear on your why. Why are you here? Why are you sacrificing? Why are you choosing to become the kind of woman who doesn't shrink, who doesn't fold, who rises anyway? That why becomes your shield. When doubt comes, that why holds the line. When the enemy whispers you're not enough, that why answers back. Now, I want to show you something nobody teaches. People talk about confidence like it's a mood, but it's not. Confidence is a muscle. It grows with repetition. It expands when challenged. It rests, it tears, it rebuilds stronger. So, if you don't feel confident yet, that's okay. That's human. Just keep lifting, keep showing up, keep prepping the version of yourself that already lives inside you. Let me remind you, you are not just a woman. You are a force. You carry life. You carry wisdom. You carry strength that generations prayed for. And it's time to stop watering yourself down to keep people comfortable. You weren't born to be digestible. You were born to be transformational. So speak louder. Set boundaries like royalty. Let your no mean no. Let your yes be sacred. You don't need to become her. You already are her. She's just been waiting on you to finally stop doubting her. Now listen. Before we wrap, I want to tell you if this message hit you deep. And don't stop here. There's a next level you need to see. So after this, go watch Unlock the Power of Emotional Strength. Because once you master your emotions, everything else becomes clearer, stronger, aligned. You'll stop reacting. You'll start choosing. You'll stop doubting. You'll start deciding. And that right there, that's power. We are Wisdom Recorder. This is your knowledge source. If this message lit something inside you, like, subscribe, and stay with us because the queen version of you, she's already rising.